The gospel reading today is from the book of John. John 15, verses 11 through 17. I have said these things to you so that my joy may be full in you, and that your joy may be complete. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants any longer, because the servant does not know what the master is doing. But I have called you friends, because I have made known to you everything that I have heard from my Father. You did not choose me, I chose you. Go and bear fruits, so that your Father will give you whatever you ask of him in his name. I am giving you this command, so that you may love one another. This is the word of the Lord. Amen. You may be seated. This past year, my husband Ron and I had the joy of welcoming into this world 3 new great-granddaughters. That's a lot in 1 year, one from each of our granddaughters. They were so small, so beautiful, so precious, all bundled up in swaddling clothes. We were so fortunate and happy that by happenstance we had not left Montana for Colorado when one of them was born, and we were able to see her just hours after her birth. Her parents had been surprised when they found out about this pregnancy, because they were already caring for 4 active children, 3 boys and a girl, the oldest just starting high school. So this was going to be quite a change in their life. But all the worry was blown away when that beautiful girl baby was laid in their arms and the beauty of a new life swept over them. They were overcome with gladness and joy. I've sometimes noticed, and I didn't ask you this morning about joys and concerns. I did ask you about who we should pray for, but sometimes when we ask for joys and concerns in a morning worship, in the prayer time, it is easier for people to ask for prayers for their losses and troubles than it is for them to name the good things, the joys that are happening in their lives. So I'd like you to think for just a few moments to bring to mind the simple joy or pleasure that has brought you happiness in recent days. I'll give you a few moments to think about that, and then I'm going to ask you to share those, but I'll just help you with a few things. Let us name some of the joys happening in our lives, like the beauty all around us in God's creation, about helping relationships that come alongside of us when we've had some medical appointments and someone brings us some soup or a pie. It really means a lot. Or when someone comes alongside to help in the kitchen or with the yard work here at the church. That's a great joy. And laughter. Isn't it fun to get together with friends? We love to get together with Owen and Kathy Lentz because we have a good laugh together, and it lasts for another week. And that's a good thing. And the joys of the animals and the pets that we have in our life. A sense of God's presence and perhaps a healing. Are there joys that you would like to speak of this morning? Yes.
I bought an e-bike from Fancy Fox. And I went on a trip with them up to Leadville, and we rode around the Mineral Belt Trail, and it was the most beautiful day. You couldn't have asked for a more beautiful day.
Oh,
It was so joyful, and I got a new step-granddaughter too.
very Good. They're wonderful. Other joys, yes.
My son was with us this last week.
Uh-huh.
He has two sons and a wife who is teaching.
Uh-huh.
But he retired early, and so he now has the time to come and visit us. And
Oh, that's wonderful.
the first time I had ever had a week with him, it was absolutely wonderful.
Very good. Cherish those moments. Yes. Oh, wonderful. And the painted sky at night has been beautiful too, the pinks and the oranges. Yes. And the trees, they're starting. We drove up into the Ranch of the Rockies. Oh my, some of the groves of golden leaves were just gorgeous, and you can see them on the mountains. Well, those are some of the things that we have joys for this morning. A year ago or so, there was a gathering of women in Buena Vista who came together asking the question, how can we live in this world today with its crises and conflicts and still keep our sanity, our humor, our inner peace, our joy? Their speaker that day was the Molly Stewart that I had you pray for, who has had the foot surgery. She led them in a world's wisdom traditions and told them of spiritual teachers who could show the way. Two of the the teachers that she spoke of were the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Tutu of South Africa, who have collaborated on a wonderful book called The Book of Joy. I don't know if your men have studied that book yet, but the women have. Wonderful. And it's also available on audio tape. We've listened to it a couple of different times in a Sunday school class at the Congregational Church and on trips that we've taken. His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu, both of whom are Nobel Prize laureates, have survived more than 50 years of exile and soul-crushing violence of oppression. Despite their hardship, or as they would say, because of them, they are two of the most joyful people that you will find on the planet, and they share that with us in this wonderful book. In April of 2015, Archbishop Tutu traveled to the Dalai Lama's home in Dar es Salaam, I can't say it, in India, to celebrate His Holiness's 80th birthday, and to create what they would hope would be a gift for others. They looked back on their long lives to answer a single burning question: how do you find joy in the face of life's inevitable suffering? The Dalai Lama, you know, has lived for 59 years in exile from Tibet, and in fact now I think it's about 62 years. The two traded intimate stories. They teased each other continually and shared their spiritual practice. And you can hear that in the audio tape. It's just a wonderful thing because there is a facilitator between them, but they tell stories and they laugh at each other, and you can just feel that when you hear them speaking it. At the end of a week of being together, which had been filled with laughter and punctuated with tears, these two global heroes had stared into the abyss and despair of our time and revealed how to live a life brimming with joy. The book gives the reader the rare opportunity to experience their astonishing and unprecedented week together, from the first embrace to their final goodbyes. Their dialogue brings many insights into what they call a group of practices, the obstacles of joy. Fear, stress, and anxiety they have a talk about, frustration and anger, sadness and grief, despair, loneliness, envy, suffering, illness, and the fear of death. And then they offer the 8 pillars of joy, which they believe provide the foundation for lasting happiness. They are these, the 8 pillars of joy: perspective, humility, humor, acceptance, and forgiveness, and a wonderful chapter on gratitude, compassion, and generosity. Throughout their discussion, they include stories of wisdom and science, and finally, they share the daily joy practices that anchor their own emotional and spiritual lives. These spiritual masters reveal much of themselves in this unique collaboration. They offer us the reflection of real lives filled with pain and turmoil, in the midst of which they have been able to discover a level of peace, of courage, and of joy, to which we also can aspire to in our lives. These are Archbishop Tutu's words about joy. Joy is much bigger than happiness. While happiness is often seen as being dependent on external circumstances, joy is not. Our state of mind and heart animates our lives, and what ultimately leads to a life of satisfaction and meaning. We were meant to live in joy. This does not mean that life will be easy or painless. It means that we can turn our faces to the wind and accept that this is the storm that we must now pass through. We cannot succeed by denying what exists. The acceptance of reality is the only place from which change can begin. The Dalai Lama's view of relationship and oneness was this. When he was asked if he was a Hindu, he said, "Oh yes, I am, but I am also a Christian, a Muslim, a Buddhist, and a Jew." This book can leave you with more hope and confidence in the future, more genuine concern for the well-being of others. You will be surprised at what will touch your heart. In conclusion, as a Christian, someone who is seeking on a daily basis to live as a disciple of Jesus, a follower of the way, my heart and mind turn to the teachings of Jesus found in the Beatitudes and in the Sermon on the Mount, as it is sometimes called. I read with new eyes, open to seeing God's way to living a God-directed life every day. These teachings of Jesus are guidelines for us on how to find happiness and joy and a meaningful life, and how to be self-giving, living in this world. Different translations of Matthew 5 use different words to begin the teaching, such as blessed is used, or you're blessed, or another translation often uses happy. This is the translation by J.B. Phillips. This is how it reads from Matthew 5. When Jesus saw the vast crowds, he went up to the hillside, and after he had sat down with his disciples, came to him. And then he began his teaching by saying to them, "How happy are the humble-minded, for the kingdom of God is theirs. How happy are those that sorrow what sorrow means, for they will be given courage and comfort. How happy are those who claim nothing, for the whole earth will belong to them. Happy are those who are hungry and thirsty for goodness, for they will be fully satisfied. Happy are the merciful, for they will have mercy shown them. Happy are the utterly sincere, for they will see God. Happy are those who make peace, for they will be known as the children of God. Happy are those who have suffered persecution for the cause of goodness, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs." And what happiness will be yours when people blame you and ill-treat you and say all kinds of slanderous things against you for my sake? Be glad when that happens. Yes, be tremendously glad, for your reward in heaven is magnificent. They persecuted the prophets before your time in exactly the same way. You are each the salt of the earth. But if the salt should become tasteless, what can make it salt again? It is completely useless and can only be thrown out of doors and stamped underfoot. You are the world's light. It is impossible to hide a town built on the top of a hill. Men and women do not light lamps and put them under a bucket. They put them on a lampstand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. So let your light shine, giving light to the sight of others. Let others see the good things that you do and give the praise to God in heaven, celebrating with the love and joy that you feel in your heart and in your life. You each have an opportunity and a responsibility to be salt and light. Let's make a difference with living the life that God has given us. Amen. And now we'll turn to hymn number 620 and prepare our hearts to receive communion this morning.